right. Good evening, friends. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I wanted to do a video because so many people have started businesses, and congratulations. It is awesome that you have ventured into a journey, and maybe you've already been in business for a while, but you're in search of bigger contracts, higher paying customers. Maybe you're a nonprofit organization or you started a new program and you're looking for grant dollars. I wanted to just give you some insights on what that world actually is like. Sometimes we glamorize things because it sounds good, but no one really tells us the real about it all. And I just wanted to give you some of my insights and my experience from one, being a business that has done government contracts. Also, I used to work in the governor's office of faith-based and community initiatives. So part of my work was to find programs and nonprofit organizations that were doing great work and get them funding. So I'm coming from my experience of both being on the administrative side of those grants and also being a person on the corporate side as a small business owner that has to land and manage contracts. And I wanted to just talk to you a little bit about what you need to make that work if it's something that you would be into. And oftentimes, we can be business to business, or maybe we're business to consumer, and we feel like our customers and our clients may not be paying enough money, for us to really sustain our business. So we're looking for bigger contracts, which is great. It's good if you want bigger contracts. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. What I will say is that if you want bigger, what you need to do is prepare yourself for what that growth looks like and what some of the realities are with managing those contracts. For starters, what I will say is that the bigger the company, the longer it takes for them to pay you. That is a true reality. So if you're looking at, a top university, Ohio State, or whatever the company is, the bigger the company, the longer it takes to get paid. They're not just going to pull out their credit card and pay you on the spot most of the time. Most of the time, there's a lot of hands it has to pass through, and that your check, can sit on someone's desk for a while because they have several vendors. Maybe they have a bigger system. There's an approval process that it needs to go through. So they might run somewhere around net 60, net 45, net 90, or even now due to the pandemic, a lot of these bigger entities are taking a lot longer to pay you. It could even be into net 120. So what does that mean for you? Yes, you may get a much bigger check, but in the meantime, sometimes your bills are still coming out on a monthly basis. So you may have to adjust the way you're paying, some of your help, because the bigger the contract, the bigger your supplies and materials and softwares and even some of your manpower may have to be so that you can fulfill their orders and their requests. So it looks so different, and you've got to set yourself up for that, especially if maybe there are a lot of these softwares that are out there now that in subscriptions that we use. Those things are coming out on a monthly basis, right out of your checking account, whether you get paid or not. So how does that look? One thing that I had to do is I had to really work on my credit as a business owner. So if there's some people who are watching this and maybe you do some credit repair, or maybe you do some credit counseling, or there's a really great group, Keys to Black Wealth. They do a great job with making sure that you can get on your feet with your credit. Get some advisement when it comes to your credit, because what I had to learn how to do is all my bills come off of my credit card for my business. And then what I do is I pay off my credit cards every month when I get my invoices, so that way I can sustain my business while I'm waiting for those invoices, because it does take time to get paid. It takes a long time to get paid. And if you're not set up to where you can keep paying your bills regularly until those invoices come in, you can grow yourself right out of business. And eventually you run out of money, you can't fulfill the job, then you're messed up your reputation because you've taken on a job that's too big that you do not have the manpower or the credit to sustain. Some of the things that you can do to help with some of that is make sure that if you do not have good credit on the major credit bureaus, what you can do is work with vendors who you have good credit with. So make sure that you're establishing good relationships with some of your trade lines. Maybe if you are a media buyer, have a good relationship with some of the radio stations and things. That way, when you get paid, they get paid. Also make sure that that's an agreement amongst your contractors. When you get paid, they get paid. You may have to pay people slower, to make up for some of that and mitigate for some of those costs. But one thing I have learned is if you are taking on bigger contracts, make sure that you do not burn your small business customers, that the people that help you build your business, because those are the contracts, those little small jobs. Yes, they're smaller increments. Those are really the ones that would keep small businesses like mine going on a month-to-month basis until we do get some of the larger contracts. So that's just a tip. It's great if you can get those bigger government contracts. What I will say is that pay attention to the proposals. Every agency, whether you're going from city, state, federal, they all have a way that they like their proposals to be written. Make sure that you have different templates where you can quickly turn a proposal around, put together your team in advance, really start to build those relationships. And I would start with one and expand your way out. Once you've mastered something, then go into something else. But that's the good, the bad, and the ugly about taking on bigger contracts, government contracts or corporate contracts, is that it takes longer to get paid. It really does. Rarely is it net 30 when you're getting paid. So make sure if you want to do that, that your business is set up, that you can go 3 months without getting paid. Also, make sure that you are building in some of those costs and you're really planning your budget for how that's going to look. So that is very important. If you've got a good CPA or an accountant, whoever can help you with some of your budgeting and your financials when you're managing some of those contracts and managing your costs, so that way you're realistic about how that needs to look for your business, that's important. What I will also say is if you are a nonprofit organization and you are seeking, you're venturing into the space of grants for the very first time, maybe it's something that you are interested in. A lot of federal grants, they tend to work on reimbursement. So that's another reason why you would want to have a good credit as a business, especially. So that way, if you have a program, you're steady getting your donations, and then what you would do if you're going to go for any sort of federal or government grants, you can apply for reimbursement. So that way they are picking up the bill. And that's how that works. A lot of times, of course, it depends on the agency, depends on the grant. Sometimes they do give you a check up front. But just know that it's all about transparency, and that's especially true when you're dealing with government because you're talking about tax dollars. So you've got to have your paperwork in order. You've got to make sure that those things look good. And still, it can still run net 60 to net 90, okay? So you can invoice them on a monthly basis, but it may take up to 60 days for them to fulfill some of those invoices. So make sure that you have someone that's good on your board, that's great at managing grants, managing the budget, managing those resources. You're going to need some intake coordination a lot of times because they want to know who you're serving. So that's definitely a reality when it comes to taking grant dollars oftentimes from the government. Now, you can't always go through some private entities. It may not have the same level of auditing that some of the government grants may have in those opportunities. But, think about that. Think about how that's going to look. Can you afford to wait? And it's okay to slow down, and it's okay to, if your business is not in a place where you can afford to go that long without getting paid. In the meantime, if you do want to be able to go into taking on some of these bigger contracts and bigger agreements and bigger terms, then what you need to do is build that credit, establish those relationships, get you some great trade line agreements, get you some great partners who understand, that can work with you. Even building a relationship with the bank, sometimes that means going into the bank instead of doing mobile check deposits and things. You work with the banker. It's good if you can have those contracts in hand and show them that you do have a contract, but this is the pay schedule. Relationships they are everything when it comes to taking on those bigger contract agreements. And I'm saying that as a person who's managed the contract and also the person who's been the contractor or the subcontractor on a contract that, sometimes it's been a long time, up to 6 months before we've gotten paid. And if you have a really good leader that you can trust to manage that and to manage you in the process. And then, you've got expenses and things that have to come out of it. You're going to have to make sure that those costs are built in to some of the things that you need to do so you can sustain yourself. So that is just a little bit of the good, the bad, and the ugly about taking on bigger corporate clients. You just need to take in that reality that you are a bill now. So welcome to entrepreneurship. This is not direct deposit. It is not getting paid every Friday like it used to, or every other Friday, or the 1st and the 15th. You're a bill, and people pay bills late, and companies pay bills late too. They especially pay bills late. So just know that. And a lot of times when businesses may go out of business, is not because they were at a lack of business. Sometimes it's just because they did not have the resources to take on those contracts and the realities of everything that came with. And a lot of nonprofits have gone under because they secured grant dollars, but the dollars never came in, and the nonprofit has folded before the grant dollars had a chance to come in. And this happens. So this is why good credit is very important if you're trying to take on bigger initiatives, because if it does run a reimbursement, what they'll have to do is pull from their lines of credit with the bank and pay up front, and then they are reimbursed for those costs for the services that they have provided. And that's how it can work a lot of times, depending on the grant and depending on the agency that's issuing the grant and which level or of government it's coming from. So I hope that this was very helpful. But I just want to let you know to prepare yourself and really make sure, as a business owner, as a self-employed individual, that you have good financial people that can help you. And if that is not your forte, I am not a administrative person. It is not my thing. So having the right partners is very important to me. And I've developed those partnerships with people who are very good at this side of things. Because that is not my thing. I'm a saleswoman. I love sales. I'm the person that would rather put together the proposal, do the presentation, pitch the client. That's my space. But as for managing the money, managing the grant, managing the budget, not my favorite thing to do. But so I just wanted to give you what that reality looks like, so that way you can learn that managing those resources are truly everything. It's so important, because the first few years of my business, of just waiting for invoices, waiting for people to pay, looking at my accounts payables and looking at the receivables, and it just wasn't adding up. And though I had a lot of business, a lot of stable business, a lot of customers, my pay was not. And then by the time I would get paid, I would be in such bad shape that it didn't really push me forward. So it took me some time to climb out of that and to figure out how to do this in a way that was smart, in a way that I could always pay my bills and I was not at a loss. So you really have to have an investment mind and make sure that when you get your profits, you're investing them, so that way you can always have a flow of cash that's going, and you learn to stop using your own money to sustain your business. You borrow, like I said, I've used my credit cards as my credit line. And then I just pay them off as soon as I get paid, so that way I have a continuous flow of paying my bills and and I'm not hurting in the middle. But it took me a long time to get there, so I just want to share with you what I've done so that way it can help you in the future to plan a little bit better for how you're going to grow, because it is very, very hard. Cash flow is hard on businesses. It's not necessarily customers, and we can hustle and hustle and hustle ourselves to death trying to get more and more customers, and it never solves the problem. Cash flow is key to making sure that you are sustainable, especially if you want to take on bigger clientele. You've got to learn how to have the resources for that, and you have to have the cash flow for that, which means you have to have the relationships that give you the access that you need to the services that you're going to provide until you get paid. So that is a true reality. Sorry that this wasn't a happy video, but at least I hope I spared you in your business. If I can keep you in business, I will be very happy to do that. So anyhow, I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any other questions, feel free to just go into my website. We can book an appointment, talk about your marketing and communication strategy. I am your local community marketing director, always happy to collaborate with you on your business growth. Anyhow, my name is Tia Ramey. Thank you again for watching, and hopefully we can talk again really soon.